So I'm sitting down to talk about a movie that I never actually thought would happen, but here we are. What's going on, guys? I'm Chris, and welcome back to another video. So today I've got my review of Joker, Folie, Deux, aka Joker 2, and I have a lot to say about this one. Before I get into it, though, be sure to hit that like button, comment down below your thoughts on the film if you've seen it, as well as your predictions or expectations if you haven't seen it. And of course, subscribe to that notification bell if you haven't already. Any support truly means a lot. I've got some extra exclusive content over on my Patreon as well if you guys are interested in that. But let's talk Joker 2. I'm not going to refer to it as Folie Deux moving forward. I'm just going to say Joker 2. This movie is a follow-up to 2019's Joker, a movie that did not need a sequel. It's like an Inception. It's like The Social Network. It's a one-off movie. But for some reason, we're here talking about a follow-up 5 years later. I'm just going to come right out and say it. This movie missed the mark entirely for me. Entirely. That's not to say there aren't any pros. I'm going to talk about those momentarily, but wow, they fumbled the bag. They dropped the ball hard with Joker 2. Now, I want to highlight the things I actually sort of liked about the film before I get into negative territory, which is going to be a good chunk of this review, to be frank. When it comes to this, look, I thought the performances were great. From Joaquin Phoenix and from Lady Gaga, both delivered on their end. That's the expectation with both, especially Joaquin. I mean, he won an Oscar for playing Arthur Fleck in the first film. Makes sense that he would have the same capability of crushing it in this film, and he does. Lady Gaga, I think she should have won an Oscar for A Star is Born for her role in that film. She didn't. I think she was robbed. She's great here as Harley Quinn. So they have awesome chemistry. That's like a no-brainer, though. And then you get into the visuals of the film. It looks exactly like the first movie, which is fine. I thought the first movie was gorgeously shot, and I can say the same for this movie as well. There are some signature shots in this movie that are like just beautiful images, right? You could sort of screenshot them and make them into like an art wall. And that was a reoccurring thing. A lot of shots in this film were just gorgeous and looked like pieces of art, truly. So loved the look of the film. Performances were great. Even the score had hints of the Oscar-winning score from the first film. Aside from the performances, aside from the look of the film, I really didn't vibe with this one, and it's time to kind of turn on the negativity, unfortunately, turn up the negativity here. When it comes to Joker 2, guys, this movie is essentially, to me, a complete rehash of the first, except significantly more shallow and way less interesting. We're talking about a movie here that's 2 hours and 18 minutes. It's 20 minutes longer, roughly, than that first Joker, and there's not a lot to offer here, all right? Number one main issue with this movie is, like I said, it's nearly 2.5 hours, and it doesn't progress anything. I'm not just saying that. This movie feels like it opens and closes in about the same spot for Arthur Fleck as a character. In fact, I don't think any character in this film really undergoes any sort of emotional journey or arc. A lot of this film focuses on a potential courtroom drama where Arthur's having to answer for his crimes. He obviously committed various murders in the first film, and so he's on trial for that. But along the way, he meets Lee, Harley Quinn, played by Lady Gaga, and they have this relationship that sort of just spirals into random musical numbers that are lifeless, mind you. This isn't like we're watching a La La Land or a Singin' in the Rain, where there are musical numbers with a pizzazz or pop, and you can really admire them. This is just Arthur Fleck. Instead of, sharing his thoughts with the characters around him, he'll be asked a question and then he'll kind of just black out and go into this mental headspace where he's singing. And it's not like Joaquin is out here singing and dancing like it's Gene Kelly in the 1950s. It's Joaquin Phoenix basically talk singing, as I call it. If you've seen Les Mis, people said that Russell Crowe did this when he played Javert. I think Russell Crowe's Javert way better, but that's a topic for another time. Joaquin, not necessarily the worst singer I've ever heard, but it's just like watching Joker walk around and sing and dance for 2 to 3 minutes at a time, and then boom, he ends up answering the question. This happens over and over. It's a common reoccurrence in Joker 2 where a scene will come to a halt, and boom, we have a musical number where Joker is just speaking through whatever he's feeling, and then bang, we're back to the main plot line, if I could even call it that, because it's so slow moving. The movie moves at a snail's pace, and these musical numbers are lifeless. I love musicals. I want to make that known. I could go on and on about West Side Story, both versions of the film. Singin' in the Rain is an all-timer. I could go on and on and on. I'm not going to waste your time, but look, I have a show tunes playlist in my car that I listen to. I love that kind of music. So it's not an issue of there being musical numbers in a Joker film. I admire the idea. It's the execution that completely misses for me. At least have some creativity with your musical numbers. I don't think there's a single one that I can even recall. Usually when I come out of a musical film, there are like songs I'm like, oh, I can't wait to listen to that on Spotify, or watch the film so I can hear the song again. There's not a single instance of that in Joker 2, which is a damn shame, especially when you do recruit someone as talented as Lady Gaga, vocally speaking, and you just really fumbled there. So wild creative decision to sort of have this movie where Arthur Fleck's going on trial, so he's in court for a lot of the film, but we break into song and dance midway through dramatic scenes, very all over the place. Super, super strange. But what really irritated me with this movie, maybe more than that, is the fact that it does try and just reiterate a lot of the points that it made, thematically speaking, in the first film, in the sequel, but there's no depth here. I thought the first Joker was a good movie. When I rewatched it for prep for this movie, it actually went down for me in my personal sort of rating scale. When I went into this, I was like expecting something new and fresh. No, it tries to tackle the same issues, thematically speaking, and it just misses the mark. In a sense, it doesn't even feel like its own movie. It just feels like it's trying to go back into this bag of tricks that, garnered 11 Oscar noms, I want to say, back in 2019. And now it's like, well, let's just try and do the same thing, but add musical numbers and have a courtroom drama. It just doesn't work. A lot of elements are at play here, and they just don't click. A lot of this movie results in scenes going on and on and on. I mean, we're talking 5-minute scenes of Arthur Fleck walking through Arkham, and it's just like, what are we doing, guys? Have some drive here. Have some urgency. It feels like this movie is just a bunch of scenes compiled that don't really mean anything, and they don't result in anything. There's no main plot in this film. It's paper thin if there is. This is a slow watch. I found myself getting bored. My eyes were getting heavy. I can't say I dozed off, but I was just like sitting there, and I was losing interest in a Joker movie. A sequel to a billion-dollar film. Someone in Joaquin Phoenix is returning. He won an Oscar for his role in the first film, and you come back and this is what you got cooked up 5 years later? This is the movie you have? I mean, I can respect some of the creative choices made behind the scenes, but the execution is not there. If you're a sports fan, it's like if you come out unprepared and you get your ass whooped. You got, 5-star guys, we're talking college football here. You got talent, but you just don't execute, so you get beat. That's the case here. It has the look of a movie that should get multiple Oscar noms. It's got the star power of a movie that should be a home run, but it's just lacking, and I think a lot of that, unfortunately, might fall on Todd Phillips for just not having it behind the camera. Historically, Todd Phillips is a comedic director, and he might have got lucky with Joker. I mean, if you look at the behind the scenes of that film, a lot of creative guys were involved and kind of dropping in and out. Scorsese played a hand. Bradley Cooper was a producer on the film, I want to say. So, I mean, there was a lot behind the scenes that maybe elevated that film, and here it just feels like a shell of what a Joker should be. Like, if you view this as a courtroom drama, the dramatic tension there is lacking entirely. If you view this as a musical, it's a stale one at that. And if you view it as a comic book film, it doesn't really possess any traits that stand out. It's a very dull movie. There's no real payoff with character arcs or development even. The final product is a movie that just feels fairly lifeless. Now, that's not to say I had some enjoyment here and there, but I'm at like a 2 out of 5 right now on Letterboxd, and that could be generous. Over time, that could drop. Trust me, I've seen lots of my mutuals on Letterboxd review this movie even more poorly than I have. I have seen it once. I don't know if I want to watch it again, but I do admire some of the risks it took. They just missed the mark entirely. They didn't even hit the dartboard, right? It was sad. And I want to dive into spoilers at some point, and maybe I will, but there's some moments in the third act that are played completely for shock value, in my opinion. I just sat there and I wanted to roll my eyes. I was like, oh, are we doing this? Are you serious right now? It frustrated me, and I would say this movie was more irritating than anything. I didn't go in expecting a Best Picture winner. I just went in expecting a movie maybe equally as good as the first, and boy, was that a mistake. I'm warning you guys right now, this movie probably not going to land for a lot of folks out there. It's been deemed a disaster by a lot of people. I'm not going to go that far. It's more competently made than a lot of the worst movies I've seen this year. This is not on the level of Madam Web or Uglies or Borderlands. Like, it's still a competently made movie. It's got all the pieces of something that should be great. It just falls flat in execution. It was a little over ambitious, to say the least. Todd Phillips might have got a little full of himself at times, and you can tell this thing's way too long and drawn out. Not really much meat on the bone. Paper thin plot. It's a damn shame because it was one of my more anticipated films of the year. But that's life, to quote the movie, I guess. But that's all I have to say about Joker 2. Let me know your thoughts down below and hit that like button, subscribe to that notification bell, and stay tuned for more content coming very soon. But until next time, I'll see you guys later.